Every episode of the Positively Living podcast is meant to spark insight, and the Positively Productive Resources page helps you turn that insight into action. Browse free tools, guided audios, and practical favorites that make living intentionally easier. You'll find them all at positivelyproductive.com/resources.
What I'm coming across more and more and more is people feeling consistently stressed. It's a persistent level of stress, constantly in a stress response. And you're quite right. You're interchanging words of stress and distress, but actually you're right because it becomes distress. It becomes distressing to always feel stressed. And that's what I'm noticing. And that really stems from our thoughts, our thinking. And that's why a lot of the work I do is about getting in our heads. I know what it's like to be in my own head and be stuck on a loop of thinking that I cannot get out of. And it just brings you down. Imagine how freeing when you're not going over and over something that's happened or something that went wrong, or you're worrying about what might happen, but being much more present with how you feel and a lot more kinder to yourself.
You're listening to the Positively Living podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Zawrotny, founder of Positively Productive Systems and a productivity coach certified in positive psychology and stress management. Join me as we explore ways to live a more proactive, positive life with episodes on productivity, self-awareness, mindset, entrepreneur life, habits and systems, simplicity, fun, and more. I understand overwhelm personally as a multi-passionate entrepreneur, wife and mom to kids and cats, and as a caregiver. I'm here to help you choose what's right for you so you can do less, live more, and breathe easier. Sound good? Let's get to it. Welcome to the Positively Living podcast. I'm your host, Lisa, and today we're revisiting one of my earlier and extremely heartfelt conversations with happiness coach and author, Julie Leonard. When this episode originally aired, the world was in the thick of the pandemic. Stress levels were high, uncertainty was constant, and happiness often felt like something we'd get to eventually, we hoped. We would try to eke it out, but it was a challenge. We needed this conversation then, but there's a reason I wanted to share it again now. We're dealing with so much in our world. I don't even have to explain the half of it to you. And my conversation with her reminds us that happiness isn't about pretending everything's fine. It's about cultivating resilience, managing stress, and finding balance even when life feels so heavy. And we definitely need that. Since recording this episode, I've continued exploring the science and systems of happiness, including connecting the dots between life satisfaction and productivity, specifically in episode 197, Seeking Happiness to be More Productive. I encourage you to listen to that episode in conjunction with this one, and watch for upcoming episodes where I'll share more thoughts and insights on happiness going forward. Julie brings warmth, research, and practical tools to this conversation, which I love. We talk about shifting negative thought patterns, decluttering what drains you, and adding more joy to your everyday life. If you've ever wondered how happiness fits into real-life struggles and situations, this episode will show you it's both possible to do and a powerful lifeline. Let's revisit this timeless conversation with Julie Leonard on how to pursue an intentionally happy life. Welcome, Julie Leonard, to the Positively Living podcast. I am so ready to talk intentional happiness with you today, but before we do, would you please start by telling us a bit about who you are, who you help, and what makes you light up?
Well, it is just so great to be here. I've been so looking forward to our conversation, Lisa. So this is wonderful. So hi, I'm Julie Leonard. I am a life coach and I call myself a happiness evangelist as well. So I'll tell you why I'm calling myself that in just a moment. But let me share a little bit about my story. You might hear from my accent, I'm from Scotland and I currently live in Munich, Germany. And I grew up in Scotland where we don't really express our emotions so much and we don't really talk about how we feel so much. I grew up in a very loving family where they taught me amazing values that have really shaped who I am today, particularly around equality. And just that everyone's got a right to be happy, I guess, is what I really learned from them. But my father has experienced depression his whole life, and we never really spoke about what that was. Such a loving man, but he would often be in his own head or, caught up in what's going on for himself. And so when I was talking to him, he might not hear me or might cut me off. And as a child, I internalized that in a really negative way of like, I'm not good enough or I don't have an opinion worth listening to, that kind of thing. And I grew up very anxious and really shy and really introverted. And that'll be really hard to believe as you hear me chat. But I share it because I hope it also inspires people. Yeah, I really transformed myself. And a big key to that was I went to study psychology. I think I really wanted to understand what was going on in my family and in my own head. And that was great because I realized I wasn't like completely strange, that I was a regular person. But even at university, I was so nervous. I didn't speak in class. I couldn't even go for a coffee. I was just so self-conscious. It was really hard for me. But, through the psychology, and through all the work that I've done, I've learned so many tools that I've really applied to myself that really have transformed me into the woman I am now in front of you. And I hope that my story helps me relate to and inspire other women to make positive changes. But the other parallel was that through my work, I studied psychology and my dream was to become a psychologist, but I didn't quite end up going down that path. After university, I went to get some experience and I ended up working in the nonprofit sector in mental health, and I loved it. And I loved it because I could go right into people's homes and spend lots of quality time, real time with people, talking to them and helping them. And I would always ask them, like, what does recovery mean to you? What do you want to achieve? What would make you, feel good? And they would always say, I want to be happy. People kept saying to me, I want to be happy. And this really sparked in me, like, what is happiness? And people would then tell me something that was just completely attainable. Like, I want peace of mind. I want to feel calm. I want a relationship. I want to do something with meaning and purpose, those kind of things. So this really sparked my journey on like what happiness is. And I was essentially coaching people. It just wasn't called that. And then about 7 years ago, I moved here to Germany, and it was just a natural continuation to be a coach. And that's what I am. I'm a coach. And I work with women. And I guess my specialism probably is around negative thinking and limiting beliefs. It resonates with me in my own journey. It allows me to really get into the heads of the women that I work with. And I love helping women change that thinking into positive in order to get unstuck and move forwards. And I'm very passionate about happiness. I'm a happiness evangelist because I want to share the tools and the knowledge that I have. And I'm really on a mission right now. I think right now the world is, gosh, it's the strangest times, isn't it? And so much of our lives feel really out of control. There's a lot out there that's out with our control. But I know, and the research tells us that so much of our lives and our happiness is within our control. And so I'm really on a mission to share the knowledge, the experience, the tools I have, and to really help people navigate that and live a much more intentionally happy life. So that in a nutshell is my story. And this is where I am now.
Yeah, and that's an amazing nutshell. And so you can understand why I wanted to talk to Julie, right? Because two of my favorite words, intentional and happiness put together, and the opportunity for us to dig into it, to bring up what it is that keeps us from it, what it is we're looking for, and what the science says, the research says. All of this is so fascinating to me. So to put a context in it, what you're talking about with what we've gone through, we are chatting in the beginning of 2021, and we have had quite the pretty much year of a pandemic across the globe. And I've talked about levels of stress that we've experienced. I mean, just communal, and it's raised the baseline, I think, of I should say, distress, not just stress, but the distress that we felt. There's been so much going on. So I do think that this conversation, this knowledge, this deep understanding that happiness is attainable is more important than ever. You are absolutely right. So can we back up a little bit and dig into what is happiness? What did you discover it was? What did you research and find that it is? Feeling scattered or stuck? When your mind is full, it's hard to focus on what truly matters. That's where the guided mind sweep comes in. A short, mindfulness-style practice designed to help you release mental clutter, reduce stress, and create space for what's next. It's free, easy to do anytime, and listeners tell me it's a game changer for refocusing fast. You can find the guided mind sweep package for free at positivelyproductive.com/PLP sweep. What is it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think now more than ever, everyone is exploring what is happiness, all the things that we thought made us happy. In fact, some of those we realize, no, they didn't make us happy. And a lot of stuff that we're missing out on actually is important to us. So my research, I mean, a lot of my research has been very experiential just by actually talking to people. I've been now working for over 30 years. It's a really long time. And so in my own experience, happiness for people is often the words that they use are things like balance, calm, resilience, being able to handle what life throws at them, finding joy every day. Those are the kind of comments that people share with me when I ask them what makes them happy. I think in terms of like the research out there by positive psychology, and there's some great researchers out there like Sonia Lyubomirsky who did the How of Happiness. The research is really talking about how for most of our society, the emphasis on our happiness has been on external things, placing either on external happiness or like on material goods. And we've really been conditioned that the more we attain, the happier we will be. And of course, we do need a certain level, don't we? I mean, we've got Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We do need, a nice place to live, to be warm, to be fed, to have the basic securities. We all like to have nice things. We all have our different levels of what we need and how much stuff we have. But, I'm not saying don't have those things or money is important. We all need money. We all want to be free from worry and debt. Money offers us security and opportunity. But the research also shows us that when we look at income and we look at happiness, they don't correlate continually. So, yes, as money continues and our happiness goes up with it, that's great. But there's a point that scientists have really calculated where income continues, but happiness does not increase at the same rate. And that is actually around about $75,000, which is a significant amount of money, but it's not a huge amount. So that what that really tells us is like, having your millions or your billions does not necessarily mean that you will be happier, that it brings us a certain level of happiness. It's not everything. And we've really got into this sort of, they call it a hedonic treadmill of constantly wanting more and more in order to satisfy that short term happiness that we get when we purchase something. What I would suggest is that we look at internal as well as external happiness and getting that balance. That for me, happiness is about feeling that I have the tools and the ability to be resilient when life throws things at me. Because I also, I like to be transparent. I am a happiness evangelist and a life coach, but life happens to me as well. I am not immune to things.
That's right.
But I think I have a lot of the tools to help me. I don't get it right all the time. I have days where I'm really fed up or I'm negative or I don't want to go on and it's just like, this is really tough. I have those times. Things happen to me, but I have the ability to work through them. And I have developed a lot of tools that I love to share with people that help you build that resilience so that you're stronger to deal with life. So, yeah, that's what I would kind of say. Like in a nutshell, it's about that balance and resilience. And it's having a balance as well between setting your extrinsic goals, external goals, and intrinsic. So, about self development, self growth, that kind of thing. So, really focusing on that. I guess balance seems to be the key word as we talk here, isn't it?
I know it. I'm loving it. I'm loving it so much because I talk about it all the time. But these key words that you're bringing up correlate so much to the tools that we need to manage stress, to manage distress specifically, no, to manage stress in general, to allow the good stress in, to mitigate the bad, to have that resilience and to be able to, surf the waves of life, so to speak. It's not that we're going to get it right and keep it right. It's that we're going to handle what comes at us. And that's the thing. There's so much of what happiness has been described as, at least experientially for you, and that relates to wanting to be able to manage the stress of our lives. And I think within that, when you find that balance and that calm, that's when you can be open to the joy and the wonder.
Mm.
When you aren't running around with your head on fire and like freaking out about all the things that you have to do and angry and resentful and frustrated, then suddenly you can step back and say, isn't that sky gorgeous? Or letting someone, my favorite thing is letting someone in line in front of me because they look like they're in more of a hurry than I am. And what a luxury that feels like.
Absolutely.
But I think when we can manage our own experiences, not just emotions, but our experiences in our lives, we can get to that point. And I think that's essentially happiness, right?
I totally agree with you. And as you've just described the circumstances that we're in now, there's these layers upon layers that people are having to cope with right now. And the research has shown us that a lot of research is done in America, but Americans are reporting that they're more unhappy now than they were like 15, 20 years ago. So the more we have, we seem to be more unhappy. And of course, with the pandemic, about a third of Americans are reporting mental health issues. So there's a huge increase, of course. And so we've got to look at that. We've got to listen to that because as I said, we've been told that the more things we have, the happier we'll be, but we're becoming more and more unhappy. And there's so many reasons why we have stress in our lives, but I'm meeting more and more people where stress is part of life. That's just a fact. Things happen and our bodies are designed to react to that, where we have a peak and we cope through that stress and we come back down. And a little bit of stress can be a good thing. It gets us doing stuff. It gets us pushing forwards and achieving things. So if you have a report to do and you get the last minute and you get it done, you do some great work. These things are okay. But what I'm coming across more and more and more is people feeling consistently stressed. It's a persistent level of stress, constantly in a stress response.
Mm.
And you're quite right. You're interchanging words of stress and distress, but actually you're right because it becomes distress. It becomes distressing to always feel stressed.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm noticing. And that really stems from our thoughts, our thinking. And that's why a lot of the work I do is about getting in our heads. I know what it's like to be in my own head and be stuck on a loop of thinking that I cannot get out of. And it just brings you down. Imagine how freeing when you're not going over and over something that's happened or something that went wrong, or you're worrying about what might happen, but being much more present with how you feel
Right.
and a lot more kinder to yourself about life happening. Because we all make mistakes. Nobody is perfect. I make mistakes constantly.
Me too.
We
I'm good
do,
at
but
it.
we do. I'm not just saying that. I'm so human. I get things wrong all the time. But what I'm really learning and working myself is to not beat myself up all the time. Nowhere close to perfect, but just get things wrong. That's normal. But I meet people all the time, and that's the clients that I attract where that inner dialogue is so negative and we're really stuck on that. We're ruminating and we're stuck. And that's what I want to change desperately. That's what drives me to do what I do, that I feel people are suffering
Yeah.
and they don't need to suffer.
Needless. Yes, exactly. And so this leads into the question that I have, and I think that you're starting to answer it with this, but I'd like to explore it more, which is what the conflict is for us, why we can't. I mean, I seriously loathe the word just in phrases like, can't we just be happy? But realistically, what is it that's happening that's causing the conflict? One of the things that you said earlier when you were describing your childhood really jumped out at me in this idea that, you grew up in a culture where expressing your emotion was not the thing. And my episode with Katie Russler on growing through grief, She and I bonded over the German culture in a struggle when we were growing up of not wanting to express. And again, that's not a slight to them at all. I loved this culture and growing up in it, but that was a thing. That was a thing where it was, I can remember my mom saying, okay, okay, enough crying now, moving on. And I was a sensitive child, and it was a really challenging juxtaposition to be like, okay, I'm feeling all these things, but maybe I'm not supposed to be feeling all these things. And then it's this sort of, it gets into that, what's wrong with me, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Which is what I'm railing against. I'm advocating against. There's nothing wrong with you. You're listening right now. There's literally nothing wrong with you. It's just processing all of this. Have you noticed that to be part of it, or just the not talking to people and expressing it? What's going on there?
yeah, I mean, what you described is so familiar to many people that we are I mean, a lot of my clients, they often say like, nothing really happened to me. I think we often feel like there has to be some kind of major incident, major life event. And that's why I share my story, because nothing bad happened to me.
Right.
However, I was affected by things. And I think a lot of what we inherit from parents, from grandparents, from family, from society, from our cultures, it builds layer upon layer inside us,
Yeah.
and it's what shapes us as people. And you described something very important there, that disconnect between when someone tells you how you feel and you feel something completely different. It's very damaging to do that. That's like when you fall and skin your knee and your mum says, "No, you're fine." And you're like, "I feel it's no, it's really sore." And like, "No, you're fine."
Yeah.
So you learn from an early age of like, "Oh, how I feel isn't right. It's not correct how I feel." But we hear a lot of stuff. We get a lot of messages growing up, sometimes not really meant to be deliberate. They're just passed on as just things that we hear. It's very important to examine the messages that we have and the language that we use in our own heads. And that's a starting point for me when I work with people, is to understand like who has shaped and what's been said, what are the beliefs that we now carry, and then looking at what we're actually telling ourselves in our inner dialogue,
Right.
which is very much often an inner critic more than a nice inner dialogue, because it's just become so automatic. It's just who we are. The language is just there. And that's what I really listen to, is the language. So I think there's a huge amount of that just there's so many factors as we grow as a person that influences. And also, I think something that's important is that in the brain, we seem very naturally pulled towards the negative more than the positive. And I know you'll have said this many times, but it takes 5 positives to outweigh 1 negative. So we're very drawn. It's very easy for us to sort of latch on to negative and ignore a lot of the positive. And if you have any negative thoughts, and I don't know a human being that doesn't have no negative thoughts, we all have negativity in our minds, then we often seek that information that confirms what we believe, what we know.
Yes.
And that then continues to reinforce this knowledge. And even if there's so much other evidence out there, that one piece that confirms what we know, we hang on to.
Right.
So if you feel like I'm not worthy of love and someone, my boyfriend broke up with me, that confirms it, but not that, you have 10 amazing friends that would do anything for you and think you're the best person in the world. That doesn't fit in with the point of view. So I think our brains also kind of help sabotage that a little bit and reinforce the messages that we've had through life. It's not until I think we feel this level of distress, or we get to a point where we realize we're not where we want to be, that often that's where people come and say, okay, something's got to change. And for me, it starts with the thinking. Once you change your thought, you change your life, definitely.
Absolutely. And I've definitely talked about how our brains love to sabotage us. They mean well, I swear they do. But yeah, we're evidence seeking and we just default to the negative. I have not spoken of the 5 positives to break the negative. I like that numbers game here. This is good. And it's a good reminder to us, right? That we need to keep trying and keep finding more positives, not because there's only positive, but because it helps to create that magic word that you came up with earlier, balance, right? That's what we want. And to create that balance, it looks like we need to seek out more of the positive. And the other thing that you inspired me to think of in terms of the thinking that we're dealing with and where we're going with this and the sort of, it's the not enoughness. And I speak of this a lot. Then we are led to essentially consumerism, right? To find the things that will satisfy. And that's that external versus internal again. So I talk about a lot of that in terms of clutter and creating clutter because we're seeking something that we need to find internally, but we're looking outwardly for it. So we're buying the things and we're getting these repeat messages. Sometimes it's not malicious. Sometimes it's just flat out hardcore marketing because all they really want is the money. But you have companies who will tell you repeatedly how not enough, not good enough, not whatever enough you are. And they want you to buy the things because that is the answer. And so we're always seeking the answers. So I love what you're saying about we need to turn it inward.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about what you consume then, if you consume the news all the time, then a lot of it, of course, just seems very negative. So if you're not balancing out with positive stuff, then that's going to skew your point of view. If you spend a lot of time with one friend who's very toxic and negative, you need five amazing friends to outweigh that. I mean, if you put it really big, make it really obvious, but
Yeah.
I think that's what happens in our lives. And yeah, we're also then, as you've said, we're really reinforced that there are things that will make us happy, and it's not always true. And I think it's what it really does is create short-term happiness. And so you need to have that fix again. It's like that'll last a little while and then to buy
Mhm.
another thing to feel good and another thing and another thing. And yeah, sometimes those things do. We all enjoy buying something nice. Don't get me wrong. It's important to a degree, but it's not. I think in the end, that also then becomes another problem. We're finding people have too much stuff, too much clutter, and it's just becoming another problem. Your solution actually is another problem,
Right.
and we're not really fixing it. And that really we want to go a bit more inward rather than outward. And I think this past year has shown us that the things that are actually truly important. Of course, we miss some of the everyday stuff, going out, socializing, being around, doing fun stuff. But I think it really highlights actually what is important, and it's about connection, about relationships, about human touch and contact. Those are the things that seem to really matter, or experiences are what matter, not
Yes.
so much stuff or working long hours or anything like that, and money to a degree. I think we're really coming back around and realizing that it's time to slow down and get much more intentional about what is truly important for you as an individual.
Absolutely. So let's talk about tools, things that we can do, things we can step away after listening to this conversation today that I will continue to do because I promised you I am still practicing this every single day myself. What can we do? What are some steps we can take? Sometimes all you need is someone to help you cut through the chaos and make sense of it all. That's what my clarity call is for. In just 30 minutes, we'll get to the heart of what's blocking you and outline simple, doable steps forward. It's a compassionate, no pressure, budget friendly way to get moving in the right direction. Learn more and book your spot for only $55 at positivelyproductive.com/PLP Clarity.
I mean, I think the first step in order to really think about the life you want to lead is to get really clear on the things that are important to you. You can't go anywhere unless you have that.
Yep.
So I really recommend people start to bring attention to what it is they truly want, whether you use something like a guided visualization, you're working with a coach, asking yourself some reflective questions. That's what I just did. My latest blog post is just about that, with like 15 questions to help you start to get clarity. It's getting really clear. You've got to understand what it is you want. And if you don't know what it is, find someone to help you
Yep.
to get that. You've got to know what you're working towards. So I really think that's important. I think as well, being clear on the goals, and like we actually touched on decluttering. And I think if I could just put it in just for a second.
Yeah.
But it's clearing away the things that aren't important, the things that no longer serve you, where you're spending your time. I hear it over and over, I don't have time, I don't have time. And I get it. We all thought we'd have more time in the lockdown. And gosh, how is it possible that we actually don't have more time? We've got even less.
Yeah.
I get that. But there is time. We've got 160 hours in the week. There is time to do the things that you truly want. Don't let that be a barrier to you having the life that you want. Strip away the things that are non essential, the things that don't bring you joy, the things that are cluttering you up, whether it's a physical clutter, emotional, whatever that clutter is, the stuff that's things that you do by habit, things that you feel that you should be doing or ought to be doing or you've always done, reevaluate how you spend your time because time is one of your most precious commodities. And so declutter what is no longer serving you and really elevate and prioritize the stuff that really means something to you. Last year I wanted to write a book. And of course, I feel like I've not got time to write a book. The stars aligned and I was ready to do it. And so I really cleared a lot of stuff. I had to put things on hold. I had to really not do other things. And I had to really prioritize my energy and my time. And there was a lot of late nights put in there. But I wrote a book in 4 months, start to finish, published. And I did it. And I made the time. And that is really, I'm always learning, but that's really triggered something in me of like, okay, there's other things that I can now do. If I can do that, I can learn a language or I can do whatever it is I want to do. So look at how you spend your time and take away the things that aren't essential. And as I say, I really want to emphasize elevate the importance of the things that are truly important to you.
Thank you for pretty much being a case study for exactly what I coach, Julie. I swear I didn't plant her here. I'll give you your check later. No, because you're talking about the phrase I use is make space for what matters. Exactly what you're talking about. And I love this, the idea of figuring out it's where your time is going, where your energy is going, like when you're talking about being with people who are draining you. And again, going back to that kind of like the balance idea, to find the balance, you have to create the balance by saying, okay, I've got some friends here, and maybe they're friends that you can't just let go of, right? Because that's not realistic. Sometimes you have people who are connected to you. And even if there's some issues there, it's not something where you can simply walk away. I understand life is complicated, relationships are complicated, but what is it that you are doing, or who is it that you are interacting with elsewhere that you can create that balance, bring in that joy? I talk about this with energy management. It's not only about conserving your energy and being careful about where you're being drained, but also finding and doing the things and being in those experiences that like just jazz you up. I mean, I could be tired as anything and we hop on a call and we are talking today and I'm like, woo, like this energizes me because I love it so much. Find those things. And that's how you create that balance, right?
And I love that because like I run courses all the time and I run my intentional happiness circle, which in a sense is about planning those goals and working towards it. And what comes up all the time is when people set their goals, they are amazing goals, but I'm like, where's the fun stuff as well? Don't forget the fun stuff, and that was a big part of me being more intentional in my life was, yeah, there's things like my relationship is important, my family is important. So I protect Sunday as a protected day. That's family
Hmm.
time. But something that was important that to my happiness that brings me joy is going to rock concerts. I love going to rock concerts. And so I didn't do it for a while and I moved to Germany. I didn't know anyone that liked the same music. I had a little kid, I didn't do stuff for a while. And then I thought, but that brings me joy. That's the stuff that, yeah, I'm buzzing on.
Yeah.
And so I just decided that's what I'm going to spend my time and my money. It's really expensive here in Munich to go and do anything. But I prioritized that. And then I went out. I just went by myself and I was like, I'll just go to a concert and I'll go and have fun. And that just gave me so much, yeah, that energy, that joy, that happiness that balances out all the other stuff that we have to do. So yeah, you're right. Don't forget the joy in there. Don't feel guilty about that. Put it in there. Do the stuff you love. And that's something that really triggered a lot of the work I was doing as well. Like clients would say, "Oh, I really love going to the mountains, but I don't have time for that, or I won't get there again this weekend." And they're like, "Why not?" Or we have these beautiful Christmas markets here, and people saying like, "Oh, I love the Christmas markets, but I just know I don't have time to go there." And I'm like, "Why not? Like, if you love this stuff, make time for it. Do the stuff that brings you joy. What is the life you want to lead? What is that lifestyle? What is it you want in your life? And work on that. Is it that you want to then spend the weekend shopping, cleaning your house and cleaning out the garage? No. Go out in the mountains, go hiking. You'll feel awesome for that. Or declutter your garage so you can get on with it, like
Absolutely. I mean, all of those things that you're talking about, they have a place. We have to do the practical things. We have to do, the things that are needed that will make things better. And thank you for bringing up the decluttering multiple times because it's so true. We do have to literally clear space, but at the same time, what are we clearing the space for? And the other thing too, from a productivity coach side is that when you go do those things, when you stop and you say, okay, that project can wait, and you go do the things that just light you up. That's why I love using that phrase. That's why I ask about it, because when you do those things and you go back to that project, I promise you, you will do it better and you will do it faster and your productivity will skyrocket when you give yourself, and that's literally what you're talking about. Here's another buzzword, self-care. I mean, that's what it is. It's energy management. It's self-care. It's all those things because you are elevating your mood and your perspective on life. You can go do something like a rock concert and then come back. You've taken a break. Your mind is abuzz. And if you are doing a project that requires problem solving, you are probably going to come at it from a better perspective. It's all good.
absolutely. I love all about self-care and self-care in that really deep sense. Yeah, of course, take those 5 minutes to have a facial or 10 minutes in the bath, but that real deep things that pour into you. I think as women, we pour into so many other people all the time.
Yeah.
We give, give, give. My kind of job, I give to people all the time, but we're constantly giving. Most of us are we're programmed for that. We're givers, we're nurturers, we give. But it's so important to pour into ourselves. We've really got to nurture ourselves too. And whatever it is, whether it's fun, whether it's time out, whether it's the tools that we know are good for us, are healthy for us, that build that resilience and the happiness. You know your stuff, your gratitude journal or your journaling or your meditation, your mindfulness, your yoga. Those tools work. They don't take a lot of time, but they work. They're well researched, and consistently spending 5-10 minutes on the stuff like that, you're going to reap so much in the future because of them.
Yes.
So really focus on and give yourself permission, because this is so important. Like, if we circle back to stress and distress, the long-term effects of stress are extreme and they're damaging
Yeah,
on our
very much so.
physical and emotional health. This is as important as anything else. So you must consider the healthy eating, the exercise, but all the other things that pour into us and reduce our stress levels, so that we are healthier and happier, and that long term we are here and we're healthy and we're happy. So it's vital that we carve those spaces to take care of ourselves.
I love it. And I think that is the best place for us to wrap up that self-care in the deep sense. I love how you describe that. What stands out most to me from Julie's message is her reminder that happiness and self-care are deeply connected. Not in a surface level, pamper yourself at the spa day kind of way, but in how we protect our energy, set boundaries, and prioritize what truly matters to us. That should sound so familiar if you've spent any time with me here. We've talked about all those topics and even as recently as last week, explored how critical it is to honor your limits. If this conversation inspired you to consider your own happiness habits, I invite you to start with an understanding of what brings you joy. I welcome you to download the Positively Productive Toolkit for free. Inside, you'll find my joy list exercise. I want you to start with that. It's a simple, quick, uplifting way to discover what lights you up and essentially create your own self-care guide. You can access it at positivelyproductive.com/resources. I also encourage you to go to the podcast page of the positivelyproductive.com website. You can check out the playlists there. One of them is a self-care playlist with tons of episodes and lots of ideas. If that is a better way to inspire you to how you want to go about bringing more self-care into your life and therefore more joy. As we wrap up this episode, remember that every moment you invest in your calm and your joy helps you build sustainable productivity, the kind that not only works, but lasts. One last thing I want to share is my thanks and my gratitude to you. I hope you know every single episode how much I appreciate you being here with me. I also wanted you to know that sharing these ideas and encouraging you to take steps for a more positive, productive life is one of the things that makes me happy. It's on my joy list. So your efforts to follow the show and queue up episodes means so much to me. And your reviews and shares mean even more. So thank you. Thank you for all of it. And thank you for adding to my joy. Until next time, keep making space for what matters most to you and keep prioritizing what brings you joy. Thank you for joining me today. Your time is precious, and I'm honored you chose to spend it with me. I hope this episode inspired you, and I encourage you to think about one action you can take based on today's topic. Then share it with me so I can cheer you on. Go to positivelyproductive.com to connect with me, read blog posts, and access links from each episode and download resources.